here with me now Chris Bredenhann. He is partner and director at PricewaterhouseCoopers. Chris, it's great to have you here with us. We just, of course, came out of a session on partnerships between NOCs and IOCs. I actually read a report that you recently did, and it talks about how NOCs need to transform into become NECs, so national energy companies. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah, I think the thinking around that is that we're staring down an energy transition, and whilst it would be early to profess the demise of the hydrocarbon industry, I think we need to be realistic also about the fact that there is an energy transition taking place. There are demands being placed on the energy sector around cleaner energy, a lower carbon energy, and as a result, it is important that national oil companies must adapt. If you were to take a traditional view of a national oil company being a resource holder or looking after the hydrocarbon interests of the country, and only looking at the production sometimes of oil and gas and it then being exported, there's a need for national oil companies to rethink that, to move wider, to look at local beneficiation, but also use, if they have gas, to use gas as a alternative, as an entryway and a segue into perhaps a wider part of the another part of the value chain through to power generation as well, and becoming an energy company rather than just simply a national oil company.
And what are the initial steps that we need to take to get to that goal?
Part of what needs to happen is clarity on strategy and clarity on understanding where you want to go to. You need to assess what your capabilities are. You need to then understand how do you go about transforming your organization from one that is primarily perhaps either just a holding resource or simply producing for export through to into different value chains. It requires different skill sets, it requires different thinking, and therefore it requires an investment in different capabilities.
Let's go back to a few questions around the session that we just completed. What are the types of partnerships that will be beneficial to NOCs, so NOC-IOC partnerships?
They're probably a good case to be made for partnerships between NOCs and IOCs from a skills transfer and a technology transfer point of view. I think international oil companies are typically at the leading edge of technology, of developments around how to best utilize technology, whereas in the partnership with an NOC, the NOC brings access to the market, it brings access to the resource. If you look at the typical development path for a national oil company across a maturity curve, then you would see that a national oil company would start as a resource holder, learn skills, develop into a co-operator or joint operator, then through to own operatorship. And along the way, they would need to build up the necessary skills to get that operatorship and the right to earn the right to be able to do that. So there's a technology and skills transfer that comes through through a partnership with a national oil between a national oil company and IOC.
And what are some of the things that hinder those partnerships in Africa?
I think sometimes partnerships are hindered by by a lack of regulatory clarity. So then, as a result, there's a holdback on investment. Sometimes also, I think there are government policy that is clearly driving towards a certain level of local content, or local investment, or local beneficiation that doesn't necessarily work with the investment profile or investment period that IOCs are looking at, because they might want to monetize their investment much quicker than what a host government might want to do. So it's important to look at it from a point of view of having clarity on the regulatory environment, having alignment on the outcomes for both the IOC and the NOC and the host government as well.
All right, Chris, let's leave it there. That's Chris Bredenhann, partner and director at PricewaterhouseCoopers. Thank you so much, Chris.